Now broadcasting from beautiful downtown Tallahassee, it's Classic Movie Reviews with Snark.
Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All I ask is that you jump over to iTunes and give me a review. I love this movie. It's an epic swashbuckling adventure starring one of the two greatest swashbuckling actors, Errol Flynn, with the other, of course, being Douglas Fairbanks. Today's movie is Captain Blood, 1935. This movie features royal intrigue, revolution, slavery, pirating, revenge, treachery, patriotism, and reward. This movie also features an abundance of great actors. Many of these actors we have previously covered, so I will jump right into the biographies. Lionel Atwell played a fairly typical role as the mean, slave-owning supporter of King James II, Colonel Bishop. Atwell and his authoritarian roles were first discussed in Episode 9, Son of Frankenstein, 1939. The great actor and swordsman Basil Rathbone played French pirate Leversier. Rathbone was first discussed in Episode 24, The Magic Sword, 1962. Donald Meek had a small role as the inept Caribbean Dr. Whacker. Meek was discussed in Episode 61, Stagecoach, 1939. J. Carrol Naish played the role of Cusack. Naish was first discussed in Episode 25, Sahara, 1943. The Humphrey Bogart one, not that terrible Matthew McConaughey film. Finally, E. Clive had a tiny role as the clerk of the court. Clive was discussed in Episode 7, Bride of Frankenstein, 1935. As for actors we have not previously discussed, I will start with the great Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn played Captain/Dr. Peter Blood. What a man. Flynn stated that he was Irish like his father, although he was in fact born in Tasmania in 1909. He was somewhat of a wild boy, as you should be when you are from that part of the world. He was thrown out of every school he attended for various things, including a sex scandal with a laundry woman. After he was fired from a job in Sydney for pilfering petty cash, he headed to Papua New Guinea at the age of 18 to make his fortune. It was during this time that he worked at many jobs such as policeman, garbage man, treasure hunter, sheep castrator, shipmaster, fisherman, and soldier. He took a job in an Australian production, In the Wake of the Bounty, 1933, where he played Fletcher Christian. Depending on who you believe, he may have fled to England ahead of the law and a line of cuckolded husbands. Flynn began working at repertory companies where he received acting training until he was fired for throwing a female stage manager down the stairs. He went to work at Warner Brothers Teddington Studios in Middlesex, where he worked as an extra until he was given the lead in Murder at Monte Carlo, 1935, a lost film. During this filming, he was noticed by Warner Brothers US and moved to America as a contract actor. Flynn received his first major role as Dr. Peter Blood when Robert Donat withdrew from the project. Flynn blew the roof off the role in Captain Blood, 1935. This movie made him the heir apparent to the great swashbuckling actor Douglas Fairbanks. In addition to the 8 films that he made with Olivia de Havilland, Flynn was in The Prince and the Pauper, 1937, and The Dawn Patrol, 1938. Many have intimated that Flynn and de Havilland were in a romantic relationship. Both of their autobiographies indicate that they were in love, but the affair was never consummated. By 1940, Flynn was at the height of his career. When World War II broke out, as an American citizen, Flynn attempted to enlist, unlike John Wayne. He failed the medical exam because of a heart attack, malaria, chronic back pain for which he used narcotics, tuberculosis, and multiple venereal diseases. He took the criticism for not enlisting rather than let it be known he was in such bad condition. His wartime movies include Dive Bomber 1941, Desperate Journey 1942, and Objective Burma 1945. In 1942, 2 underage girls accused him of statutory rape. The trial took place in 1943 and he was found not guilty. Many sources say this is the origin of In Like Flynn for having it easy. Following the war, American taste turned to more gritty film noir type movies. Flynn tried to adapt with Uncertain Glory 1944 and Cry Wolf 1947. He even tried westerns with Silver River 1948 and Montana 1950. His drugs, alcohol, and womanizing made him hard to work with, and at the age of 41 in 1950 he was released from his movie contract. Drinking heavily and gaining weight, he traveled around on his yacht doing occasional British movies and some television. By 1952, Flynn was sick with hepatitis. He enjoyed a small revival with The Sun Also Rises 1957, The Big Boodle 1957, Too Much Too Soon 1958, and The Roots of Heaven 1958. In The Sun Also Rises 1957, bloated and sick, he was still charming and a better actor than most. In 1959, while leasing out his beloved yacht, Flynn suffered a heart attack and died. In 1980, some a-hole wrote a biography of Errol Flynn, accusing him of being a Nazi and a bisexual. The author was later sued and had no basis for the reporting. Olivia de Havilland played the role of Arabella Bishop, the spoiled niece of mean guy Colonel Bishop. I have to be fair. Although de Havilland is a great actress, I don't really care for her style. Too mealy-mouthed. Maybe she will grow on me like Betty Field did. She worked well with Flynn, so that's enough for me. This British actress was born in Tokyo in 1916. Her sister was actress Joan Fontaine. Following a divorce, Olivia moved with her mother and sister to California. After graduating from high school, she attended college in Oakland with an interest in acting. She must have been tough to live in Oakland, toting a blade and all. While at Mills College, she was spotted by a talent scout when she appeared in the play A Midsummer Night's Dream. She was cast in a film version of A Midsummer Night's Dream 1935 and was signed to a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers. She was immediately cast in 3 more movies, The Irish in Us 1935, Alibi Ike 1935, and Captain Blood 1935. Captain Blood 1935 was the most important of her early films, as it was the first of 8 films with de Havilland and Errol Flynn. The other 7 are The Charge of the Light Brigade 1936, The Adventures of Robin Hood 1938, Four's a Crowd 1938, Dodge City 1939, The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex 1939, Santa Fe Trail 1940, and They Died with Their Boots on 1941. This pair was almost cast as Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind 1939. Try to picture that. Of course, Gone with the Wind 1939 was de Havilland's biggest movie, although she was cast in a supporting role. She was nominated for an Oscar but lost to Hattie McDaniels, the first African American to win this award. De Havilland was nominated for Best Actress for her work in Hold Back the Dawn 1941, but she lost the award to her sister Joan Fontaine. After the 2 nominations, she demanded better roles. Warner suspended her and attempted to make her work to make up the suspended time. De Havilland sued Warner Brothers and was away from film for a time. After winning her case, in 1946 she returned to film and won an Oscar for To Each His Own 1946. She received another Best Actress nomination for The Snake Pit 1948. In 1949 she won the Best Actress award for her role in The Heiress 1949. After My Cousin Rachel 1952, de Havilland worked on Broadway and in television. She worked the disaster films like Airport 77 in 1977 and The Swarm 1978 before turning to her final screen work in The Fifth Musketeer 1979. Olivia de Havilland is still alive at 100 years old and living in Paris. Ross Alexander played the role of youthful ship navigator Jeremy Pitt. Much like Gail Russell, I wondered why I hadn't seen this actor more. Sorry I asked. Ross Alexander was born in Brooklyn, New York.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
In school, he was an athlete and was already beginning to act. He began working on Broadway as a teen. He continued to be successful on Broadway when Paramount cast him in The Wiser Sex 1932. This film didn't do anything for his career and he returned to Broadway. In 1934, he was again plucked from Broadway, but this time by Warner Brothers. He was quite successful in musicals and youthful capers, and he began to get second leads in films like Flirtation Walk 1934. He began to get more dramatic roles such as A Midsummer Night's Dream 1935 and Captain Blood 1935. Shortly, Warner Brothers began giving him Dick Powell cast-offs and other B movies. They felt that they could not groom him to be a major star and deal with his closeted homosexuality. In 1934, Ross married 28-year-old actress Aletha Friel in what is considered to be a marriage of convenience. In 1935, Friel took her own life. The young actor was shaken but continued to work. During the filming of China Clipper 1936 and Here Comes Carter 1936, He worked with a beautiful actress named Anne Nagel. Warner Brothers dropped the actor after having to cover up some homosexual scandals and left Ross depressed and deeply in debt. 5 months after marrying Nagel, on January 2, 1937, Ross killed himself in a manner similar to his first wife, who had died a little more than a year earlier. His final film, Ready, Willing, and Able, 1937, came out posthumously. Ross was 29 years old. Story. This movie is set against the backdrop of the Monmouth Revolution in England. It was an attempt to overthrow Catholic King James II. Monmouth landed with a small band in June 1685. However, they were quickly beaten by the king's regular troops. Final blow came at the Battle of Sedgemoor on July 6, 1685. In the aftermath of the battle, over 300 people were executed and about 800 were sold into slavery in the West Indies. In 1688, William of Orange overthrew that government and restored Protestant rule. As the movie begins, a rider is galloping from the battle to summon Dr. Peter Blood, Errol Flynn. When his housekeeper asks why he is not at the battle, he says he has fought the Spanish for the French and the French for the Spanish and learned his naval skills on a Dutch ship, and he is devoting the rest of his life to medicine.
Half the town is saying you're a papist.
Why? Because I had the sense to sleep this night instead of rushing to my ruin in a hopeless attempt to put this Duke of Monmouth on the throne? He'd be even worse than King James. Make haste with that cloak there, my pretty one.
And the other half of the town that defends you claims that you're just a coward.
Mrs. Barlow, my darling, you can tell him if you like that I've been most anywhere that fighting was in evidence. I fought for the French against the Spanish and the Spanish against the French. I learned my seamanship in the Dutch Navy. But having had adventure enough in 6 years to last me 6 lives, I came here, hung up the sword and picked up the lancet.
Dr. Blood goes to tend the wounded man, never expecting to be swept up for giving medical aid. After a long period in jail, the men are brought to trial and all plead guilty, save Blood, who is truly innocent. The judge is not interested in having justice done and orders the jury to give a verdict of guilty. Blood also tells the judge he is ill and about to die in a pre-Faye Vincent moment. The men are ordered sent to Port Royal, Jamaica to be sold as slaves. After a hellish crossing, the survivors are brought to the market where Governor Steed, George Hassel, Colonel Bishop, Lionel Atwell, and his niece Arabella Bishop, Olivia de Havilland, are in attendance.
Good afternoon, Colonel Bishop.
Good afternoon, my dear Governor.
Good afternoon, Miss Arabella.
How's my darling the governor and his foot?
Every day I think my gout can't get any worse, and every day it does.
Colonel Bishop has first choice, but Blood sasses him, and Bishop is content to let him be sent to the mines. Bishop's niece, Arabella, steps in and buys Blood as a slave, thinking she is saving him from the mines. Life on Bishop's plantation is hard on the men, and Blood slowly becomes their leader as he cares for the sick and injured.
Hello. Don't I know you?
A lady should know her own property.
My property?
Let me refresh your memory. My name is Peter Blood, and I'm worth precisely £10.
Oh, forgive me for not recognizing you, Dr. Blood. You're so changed. For the better.
The governor tells me I have you to thank for that.
You don't sound very grateful, Dr. Blood.
Do you suppose I'd be grateful for an easy life when my friends are treated like animals? Faith, it's they deserve your favors, not I. They're all honest rebels. I was snoring in my bed while they were trying to free England from an unclean tyrant.
The royal governor is severely afflicted with gout, a disease that causes horrible foot pain. There are only 2 doctors on the island besides Blood, Dr. Bronson, Herbert Cavanaugh, and Dr. Wacker, Donald Meek. But the pair cannot cure the disease. They are dismissed and Dr. Blood is given the job. This mightily offends Colonel Bishop as the slave gains the favor of the governor. In 2 months, Dr. Blood has the gout under control. Being dismissed by the governor has cost the 2 doctors all of their business, and this gives Peter Blood an idea.
Come in. Good afternoon, colleagues. Dr. Bronson. Dr. Wacker.
Good afternoon.
Well, how's business, my friends?
Terrible.
Good. I'm terribly good.
He essentially forces the doctors to finance his escape plan and threatens to expose them if they betray him. Working with a shipwright, Blood begins to get the boat and supplies ready.
Oh, not all, my lads. There's just one other little thing. Do you think you could find me a good stout piece of timber, about so thick and so long?
Yes, I think so.
Then do so and lash it to your spine. It needs stiffening. Courage. We'll join you at midnight.
He finds that Jeremy Pitts, Ross Alexander, is a navigator, and another man is a gunner, so they feel pretty good about their chances. Weaving in and out during this time is flirtation and rejection between Arabella and Blood. The night of the planned escape, Blood is called to the governor's house, and Bishop canes Pitt trying to discover the plan. Blood returns just before midnight and starts giving aid to Pitts.
What are you doing here?
Doing?
Why, the duties of my office.
I said he was to have neither food nor drink till I ordered.
Sure now. I never heard you.
How could you? You weren't here.
Then how do you expect me to know what orders you've given?
Bishop discovers this and begins to beat Blood with the intention of killing him. At that moment, a Spanish pirate attacks the town. They bombard the town and then land troops to capture the city. Blood and his men use this opportunity to escape, but when they get to their boat, it has been destroyed by the Spanish bombardment. Blood and the other slaves steal a Spanish small boat and take over the main Spanish ship. In the morning, the Spanish begin to row towards their ship, and Blood's men open fire, destroying the pirates. The governor and Colonel Bishop think it is some enterprising town folks, and Bishop rows out to congratulate them. When he gets to the ship, the former slaves want to hang him, but Blood convinces them to toss him in the water.
Yes, it was heroic.
Heroic, is it? Bedad, it was epic.
You amaze me. On my soul, you deserve well. You all deserve well. And you shall find me grateful.
How grateful?
Why, I shall ask His Excellency to write home to the King an account of your exploit. And perhaps some portion of your sentences shall be remitted.
That's just about what we expected from you.
Now, Wolf, Colonel Bishop has a kind heart. But what kind, I'd hate to say.
The former slaves make a pirate compact and sail away to extract the wealth of maritime nations.
Outlaws in our own land and homeless outcasts in any other. Desperate men, we go to seek a desperate fortune. Therefore, we do here and now band ourselves into a brotherhood of buccaneers to practice the trade of piracy on the high seas. We, the hunted, will now hunt.
Under Blood's leadership, they become quite successful, and Blood is the most feared pirate in the Caribbean. Back in Port Royal, Arabella decides to sail to London with the governor, who has lost his position. He leaves wishing his replacement, Colonel Bishop, the gout. Blood's ship is heavy with plunder when he sees the ship that Arabella is on. Not knowing she is there, Blood's men convince him to head to Tortugas, where they can spend their ill-gotten gain. While on Tortuga, the pirates engage in two things, winching and drinking and winching, which may be what Flynn was doing between takes. Captain Blood meets a French pirate captain, Lavoisier, Basil Rathbone. The two enter into a mutual compact and agree to share their plunder with each other. Blood regrets signing the deal from the beginning.
The greatest captain on the coast, is it? Well, bedad, methinks the greatest captain on the coast has just made the greatest mistake the most ordinary common fool could make.
The two pirate captains agree on a time and a place to meet and divide the loot. When Captain Blood arrives empty-handed, Captain Lavoisier doesn't want to share his latest prize, which consists of Arabella and Lord Willoughby, Henry Stevenson. The two men argue and then decide to settle their problems with swords. They fight on the rocks along the edge of the shore, and Basil Rathbone's footwork is amazing as they move up and down the rocks. Blood wins the fight, stabbing Lavoisier in the stomach. He takes Arabella and Lord Willoughby on his ship. Captain Blood is clearly in love with Arabella, but when he tries to woo her with stolen goods, she rejects him.
I often wondered why I bothered to save all these things. Tonight I know it's because one day you'd be here in this cabin to wear them.
I'll never wear them, never. Those nor any other plunder gotten by a thief and pirate.
Thief and pirate?
I've seen your pirate ways. I've seen myself bargained for and fought over. A combat between jackals.
But I thought you understood.
You mean you thought you'd bought me? I suppose I should have regarded that as a compliment. You pirates are used to taking what you want without the formality of purchase. I advise you to go back to your ladies at Tortuga, who are thrilled by your bold, lawless ways. I only hate you and despise you.
Blood makes a plan to take her to Port Royal, where Governor Colonel Bishop is waiting with a large fleet. The men protest, saying there is a noose waiting for them at Port Royal, and they will not go. Captain Blood is masterful, and he says, fine. When they question him about where they should sail for, he says, I don't know because I am no longer your leader.
We've been with you since the first, Peter. We have a right.
You too, Jeremy? All right, lads. What do you mean, Peter? You told me we're not sailing to Jamaica. There's nothing more to be said.
Hooray for our side. Quiet. You sound like a rooster.
Good night, lads.
Wait a minute, Peter. Where are we sailing for?
That's for you to tell me, since I'm no longer running this ship.
We didn't say that, Peter.
As Jeremy says, you've got the right. You've been with me from the first, and you've been loyal and true. You've followed me into every tight corner men could follow another.
But you always got us out.
Aye, and none the poorer for it.
The men change their minds, saying they have done well under Blood's leadership, and why stop now? The entire time, Lord Willoughby has been attempting to talk to Blood, but the captain refuses. When they make it to Port Royal, they can see 2 ships in the harbor firing on the fort and town. Lord Willoughby finally breaks through and tells Blood that England is at war with France and the ships are French. He offers a commission in the King's Navy, emancipation from slavery, and full pardons for the men if they will fight for England. The men say they will never fight for James II.
However you hate the king, England is still England.
And a bad king is a bad king. And a worse one if he's James.
Right. James! This commission is sent by King William.
King William? Who may King William be? What's he king of?
I'm alluding to His Majesty King William III, William of Orange, who with Queen Mary has come over from the Netherlands and has been ruling England the past 2 months or more.
Do you mean they've roused themselves at home and kicked out that pimple James?
Yes, and he's fled to France and is in hiding there. And England and France are at war. The English people will go so far, Captain Blood, and then they get up on their stubborn hind legs.
Lord Willoughby corrects them that James is no longer king, having been overthrown by William of Orange. The men all agree to fight, and Blood leads them on. Blood and his crew take the first ship on with cannon fire and make fairly easy work of it when they hit the powder storage. However, when they turn to the second ship, they are blasted to pieces.
Those French gunners must have learnt their trade in England. That's their third direct hit.
And their ship begins to sink. Captain Blood organizes an attack on the French ship as his own sinks. The English defeat the French in hand-to-hand combat and take the ship. The ship fight is pretty well done and even has some realistic scenes spliced into them. Where was Governor Colonel Bishop and the English fleet? He was out looking for Captain Blood. Lord Willoughby orders Colonel Bishop to be arrested. Blood lets Arabella know he is being made governor. She also admits she loves him. When Colonel Bishop is brought in, Arabella asks the governor to be as kind as her uncle was cruel. Blood looks up and ends his pronouncement to Bishop with the word uncle. He then smiles.
His Excellency the Governor will hear you. The Governor? You'll find him inside. It rests entirely with him whether you're hanged or not.
It is all the fault of that scoundrel Blood. What a reckoning there'll be when we meet.
Oh, have mercy, Your Excellency. Have mercy.
Arabella, why are you here?
Uncle, I have been pleading with the governor on your behalf, asking him to be as merciful as you would be cruel. Uncle, this is the governor.
Good morning, Uncle.
World-famous short summary. Couple waits too long to get together. If you enjoyed this week's show, please tell your friends, and if you really want to help, drop over to iTunes and give me a review. If you want to comment, recommend a movie, or just say hi, follow the links in the show note to my site. Beware the Moors.